Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm back. I decided to do another one of these. I've been thinking about doing it for a second. I know that the last video I did was the my testimonial video, and since then I've had this overwhelming desire to talk about the things that I have learned as I've gone through all this. I'm looking at myself. I look hideous. This is my I am Stericycle T-shirt. This is it's funny. Before we get into anything else, this I worked at the place that printed these shirts, which is amazing. That it was the job that I got into after I left that screen printing place. Um, was Stericycle. So these shirts, it's funny. I tell everybody that story. It's a funny story to tell. But I've been thinking about telling, not telling everyone, but at least, explaining some of the new ideas that I've had. Last night, me and Angie actually had a very lengthy discussion whenever I got home. It's probably good 2 or 3 hours talk that we just had with each other about um, the lies that I can see in the world and how I think the world actually is, and our history and why things are the way they are, and et cetera, stuff like that. And she was very receptive to a lot of it. She sat down, she listened to it. I didn't cram it down her throat. I didn't say, "Oh, you have to believe this or else," like get my finger up in there, stuff like that. I didn't do that. I just basically sat her down and we talked about it, and she seemed to really understand it. And I've been kind of rolling it over in my head for the past couple weeks about doing this video about going through and saying what I believe now, because I've had my entire worldview completely turned on its head. I don't know if I've said that somewhere. I'm sure I've said that somewhere, but I've had my entire worldview turned upside down, and it makes you crazy after a while to think that I'm not the only one that thinks it. I just, how do I explain it to other people without sounding like a complete and total crazy wacko? And that's how I feel sometimes. I feel like a crazy wacko, and I can't talk to anybody about it. But it makes sense in a way. I mean, it really just kind of puts itself into perspective when you sit down and think about it. And Angie says that I have been able to put it into words that she can understand it, and it makes sense whenever I say it out the way I say it out. So we're going to try this. We're going to see if this works. For anyone that cannot, I don't want to be a jerk about it. For anyone that just doesn't want to hear somebody talk about what he believes in, um, and that you really don't want to, open yourself up past the point that you just think that I'm crazy. Hey, you can watch this and you can do whatever you want with it. It doesn't matter to me. If you want to think that I'm a crazy idiot and leave it in the comments, hey, whatever, I don't care. If there's any friends or family or anyone out there that's watching this that after you hear it, you think that I'm a complete and total whack job and you think that I need to be put into a psychiatric home or something, do they have some homes for psychiatric people? But if you think that I need to go there, then that is your opinion. I've always been kind of the black sheep of the family. That's just the way it's always been. I've always been the one that's been on the outer fringes of the family, and a lot of people know that about me. Um, so this is no different. I'm out there. I'm way out there. This stuff is so far out there that if you would have told me that, I would have believed him in half of this stuff like 5 years ago. I would have said you're crazy. It sounds nuts when you really think about it. It just sounds nuts. But when you sit down and put it into perspective, it all makes sense. It really does. It really truly makes sense. So this is for people. This is for anyone, really. But if if you hear anything in this, and I'm not going to flash any pretty pictures. I'm not going to give you any references. I'm not going to give you any details. What I'm going to say is this is what I believe, and if you either feel like proving me wrong, or you if even one tiny thing of what I say remotely makes you think like if there's something in the back of your head that just kind of goes, wait a minute, that kind of makes a little bit of sense. I want you to go find it out for yourself. Don't take my word for anything. Don't take my word for anything. Don't believe me. Don't try to think that I'm some kind of. I am not a teacher. I'm not a leader of men. I'm just a guy that I'm just a guy that started listening to what other people had to say, and I sat down and I did a fair amount of my own research. I started reading some of the things that they told me to read. I started looking at the things they told me to look at, and I'm at that point where it's like, you know what? If I can go tell somebody else, and if they can even remotely come to the place where I'm at right now, then hey, I did something. I did something. Maybe that's what my new path is supposed to be. Maybe I am supposed to at least plant the seeds in people's minds about what's going on. So we're gonna get into it. Like I said, you don't believe a word I say. Don't listen. I don't want to say that. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. I'm going to sit here and talk for probably an hour, but don't listen to me. No, but don't think I know what the hell I'm talking about either. There's still a lot of stuff that I'm still researching. There's still a lot of stuff that I'm not correct in. That was the one thing I told Angie last night. I said, you know what? I don't want to be the guy that the Bible says do not spread false information in his name. I'm going to try my damnedest not to. And I don't think I will. If I get it wrong, then Lord, please steer me on a correct path, because I don't. Sometimes it gets a little fuzzy in my head. Again, it's probably all the microwave electricity going through the air. I don't know. Okay, anyways. So the way that I think the world is now, by Nicodemus Kane. And again, I've been thinking about how I wanted to start this, how I wanted to do this. It's been running through my head. I sit at work and I mull it over in my head, trying to figure out how I want to do it. So let's just start at the beginning. So, in the beginning, God created everything. You can either believe it or not. You can either go one way with the whole Big Bang thing, or you can think that God did all this in 6 days. Personally, I am of the opinion that God did all this in 6 days. There is a supernatural element to this world that I don't think people can see past. The way I was explaining it to Angie last night was that I've been reading the Book of Enoch, and if anybody has read that book, it's pretty wild. I mean, it's got some stuff in it that's like, holy smokes. There's a part fairly fairly soon into that book where he starts talking about the sun and the moon and how the sun will make its path around the earth and it goes through portals. And it's very strange to kind of put into perspective. Um, okay, you have to understand, first of all, you have to understand that I believe the Earth's flat. I I'm not going to hide that fact anymore. I've been kind of on the fence about it for a long time. I finally admitted it about 2 years ago, and I don't have a problem talking about it because I can tell people, you know what? Me believing that the Earth flat shouldn't hurt you. It really shouldn't. It shouldn't bother you at all because you're going to go live your life however you want to live your life without having to know whether or not I believe the Earth's flat. So hey, that's your thing. That's your deal. You can believe it all. You can believe that it is a Rubik's cube floating around in space for all I care. It doesn't matter. The biggest thing I'd love for you to do is just come over and find out that God does exist and that Jesus Christ does love you. But that's on you as well. I can't really force you into that. I would like for that because I think if more people knew. Anyways, we'll get back to that stuff later. But you have to understand from my perspective, I do think it's flat. And if you put it into a perspective of the Earth being flat, you have to automatically look at the way things are in a completely different light. You have to understand there is a supernatural element to everything. And I've kind of known this for a while. I mean, people want to talk about ghosts and demons, and they want to talk about, fairy tales of dragons and all this kind of stuff. And nobody really stops and thinks, well, what if it was true? What if it was a thing? And if you do that, you have to open your mind up to these things actually existing in the world. And a lot of people just can't do that. A lot of people just say, "Oh, it's just a story. It's nothing. It's not a thing." I can see that now, though. I've kind of opened myself up to that now, and I can believe that it's there. That there's some kind of element to it. But anyways, I was going back to Enoch. I was telling her that he was describing these portals in the heavens where the sun and the moon they chase each other over the earth, and that's the way he was describing it. They chase each other over the earth. He wasn't talking about them chasing each other around a ball. He was talking about them chasing each other over the earth. But there were these portals, and I kept telling her, I said, you have to understand that there's some kind of spiritual element to it, because the entire time he was saying that, he kept saying, well, the angel that was with me showed me this, or the angel that was with me showed me that. And I think maybe that's what it was. I think we just can't see it, and he got to see it. He was shown these portals that the sun would go in. It was something like the sun would come from the fourth portal and would go around to the fourth portal on the east or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. It gets very confusing unless you slowly look at it, and I've seen people that have tried to map it out, and it just doesn't look right at all. But I think it has something to do with some kind of spiritual nature that we can't see. So, going into this, you have to open up your imagination, because there's a lot of things I believe now that once I've started opening up my mind to it and understanding that it's possible, it's like it's well, it's mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Yes, I have a lot of nervous laughter whenever I talk about this stuff, because it's like, wait a minute. Again, my whole paradigm is completely fallen apart. It's broken down, fallen apart, and it was rebuilt. Thankfully, Jesus has picked me back up on this, and he's been like, okay, buddy, you're all right. Just calm down. It's okay. Again, if you can't even get past that point, I mean, I don't know if this will do you any good or not. But if you think you can, if you think you can open your brain up to it and at least listen to it, come along with me for the journey. I mean, it's going to be weird. I'm going to tell you that much. It's going to be weird. So, my tooth is hurting. Sorry, I had a 2 weeks ago. I had a root canal, if you can believe that, and it's just this last Thursday, which was what, 3 days ago. I just had to have it refilled, and it's starting to hurt. I haven't had a chance to brush my teeth this morning, so it's so forgive me if I like, you know, hold my mouth. So in the beginning, God created all this. He separated the waters from the waters. I honestly do think that there are waters below us, waters above us. He made this flat surface in between these two. He held up the waters on the top with a firmament. Now, I can't really know for certain if it's a hard firmament or if it's like some people have described it as possibly being, you know, what if it's like an energy field, you know. There's a video of a rocket that was launched. I don't remember where it was launched from. I think it was Australia. I don't remember where it was. They said it got up to like 70 miles. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if that's right or not. It's like the highest amateur rocket ever. And it got up to a certain point and it dead stopped. And it sat there, it hung in space for a good 10, 20 seconds before it started slowly falling back down. Now, there's a lot of people saying, oh, it was air brakes, that these rockets have brakes on them, that they get to a certain point and they'll stop. I've never heard of that ever. If that's a thing, it's a thing. You can believe that. I don't know. But I've heard other people say, well, what if it hit this energy field? What if it's this hard water that people keep talking about? Because they've gone down under the sea and they found this heavy water. It's like some kind of, it's like liquid and it's water, but it's heavier than normal water, so it sits down low. What if we have something similar up there? And I mean, I can't prove it, of course, you know, and you have to also understand that I don't believe in NASA anymore. I used to be a space kid. Who was I telling? Angie's dad. I was telling Angie's dad that I grew up in Florida. When you grow up in Florida, you're a space kid. You get to watch the space shuttles. You can literally walk out of your school. You can look to the north, and you can see the space shuttle take off. You know, you can see it go up in the air and do its thing. On PBS, every time they had a space shuttle launch, PBS would stop dead what they were doing, and they would televise the launch. We would have astronauts. We had astronauts in the schools every year come in. He'd bring in a suit, or he'd bring in something else, or he'd give us all these fucking packets of Tang that, you know, they would take up. And when you lived in Florida, you were a space kid, and I was a space kid, man. I loved it. I took 4 semesters of astronomy in college because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to take astronomy because I loved astronomy. I love the idea of everything out there, but now I don't know. Now I just can't buy it. I mean, I can believe that there's stuff out there. You know, I can believe it. And the more I hear people saying that there's a certain amount of space between us and, I got to put my water down. I'm sitting here holding my water. The more people say, oh, there's definitely a certain amount of space between us and a star, that does not kill my flat earth mentality, because this could be us. This could be where the sun and the moon are. And this could be space. You get it? I mean, there's like this huge thing. It's like, this is us. This is our little tiny thing right here. and this could be it, and it's still on a flat plane, and it's still doing this, and there's reasons why. We'll get into that, but I can see that now. I'm expanding my brain, and it's not. Again, it's not because I don't understand space. It's not because I don't understand science. It's because I do understand science, and I do understand that there's been a lot of questions that I've had ever since I was a kid that have never been officially answered. Just there's always something that I'm like, okay, well then why is it that this isn't doing this way, or why can't we really understand gravity and all this? It's like I didn't want to get into a flat Earth thing. Sorry, I didn't want to do this, but the reason that I can think this now is because it answers my questions. All those questions I had as a kid, it answers it. And that's been the whole reason why I've done the complete 180 on it, is because it answers a lot. It really does, and I feel it. I not only do I feel it here, I feel it here, and I feel it right back here. The reason I point right back there, that's where they say it's in there somewhere. The pineal gland is in there somewhere, and I also call that my discernment hairs on the back of my neck. You can feel it. Whenever something doesn't feel right, or whenever something does feel right, you feel it, and it's there. So, anyways, I can see that maybe there's some kind of something over top of us. They called it a firmament. Who knows what it could be? I don't know. But he separated the waters from the waters. I think it's very interesting whenever I talk about the waters from the waters, that I saw something, and again, if you don't believe me, go look it up. Scientists are talking about black matter, dark matter, black water. There's a couple scientists I saw that said, well, maybe space is just water. I don't know. I mean, shit, maybe it is, maybe it's not. Who knows? But whenever they say something like that, it's like, oh, there you go. Could be a thing. So he makes lights to separate light from darkness. He makes the sun and the moon. He sets the angels and the heavenly bodies into the sky to go along their appointed routes. I don't remember exactly how to explain it, or exactly how it was said, but it was basically what is up there is up there, and it's meant to stay up there, and it's supposed to follow their specific routes. They're supposed to go across the sky in a specific way, and God said that's the way it'll be. They're there for, I think he said they are there for signs, and because there are going to be people that are going to have signs of him, and I think it was also signs in the sky for when certain things were supposed to happen. But in the scheme of things, the angels are put up there for that reason, that they're supposed to stay there. So, an interesting thing that goes into this, and this blew me away. I actually found this out about a week and a half ago, maybe week ago. That he appointed the angels into the sky to stay there to watch over us. I don't know. I don't remember the exact scriptures. One of these days I'm going to get on here and I'll be like, hey, I know exactly what I'm talking about, but I don't know what I'm talking about right now. But again, don't listen to me. Don't believe a word I say. If you have a problem with it, go look it up and see for yourself. It is far better for you to go look something up for yourself than to believe some whack job like me. And then when you find it, you'll know. You'll know. But the angels are placed there for reasons. They're put there for reasons. And I cannot remember which book it was. It could be. It could be in Enoch. I think it was in Enoch. I think it was in other places as well that said that the angels sing of God's glory. They constantly sing of God's glory. That's what they do. So, a week and a half ago, I hear that there's these two guys outside on dirt bikes. I can't stand them. This is a residential neighborhood. Shouldn't be riding dirt bikes out on the roads. But I hear the guys say, the scientists say that, oh, well, it could very well be water. We don't know. So then it leads me to a YouTube video of this guy that took a cylinder of water, just a regular old cylinder of water, put a speaker up against it, and then directed a tone through the water just to see what would happen. And what happens is when this tone goes through the water, it vibrates the water molecules. And what it does is it vibrates them so fast, they start producing heat. And heat eventually produces light. And what he did was he created this star inside of this cylinder of water using sound, a tone, if you will. You see where I'm going with this, don't you? So, it says in the book that the angels constantly sing of God's glory. So then, in a totally separate video, it might have even been the same video, I don't even know. But that led me to this guy talking about an astronomer that was, instead of taking not microscopes, telescopes, instead of taking, all these radio scopes, all this other shit, instead of doing all that, this guy just took a regular microphone and pointed it out towards a pulsar. And he pointed it out towards a pulsar, and a pulsar made a noise. Don't. It was, there was a couple different ones, did a couple different things. And then he started aiming them at stars. And when he did, he got this weird tone. It was just like, it was, I'm not going to go into the whole thing. But he found out that star had a tone. He's like, oh, that's pretty neat. So he pointed it towards another one, and it had a different tone. He pointed it towards the third one. That one had a different tone as well. And I'm getting goosebumps now just talking about it. You can't see him on this crappy ass camera, but I'm telling you what, it's happening right now. So this guy takes all these tones that he took, or that this astronomer took. He put them all together and he made a chord. He put the pulsars in there, made a whole thing, made this song. It was a big thing, but that was one of those. Oh my goodness, that's a thing moments. Had I not heard it in that sequence that the stars are angels, that they constantly sing of God's glory, that the waters were separated from the waters, that scientists are saying that it could very well be just dark water out there, that you can make light in a cylinder of water using a sound, and that stars literally make a tone. Had it not happened in that sequence, I would not have been able to come to where I am now with that. Hopefully that even sparks your interest. If you could have made it past all the bullshit I've been talking about for the past 30 minutes, if you could get to this point, go look it up. go do your research. But that's where I kind of stopped and said, we really have to look at this with an extremely supernatural look at the world, because it's not just this shit. It's not just this. This is all physical bullshit nonsense. I mean, we've been we've been kind of conditioned and pushed down and blocked off from what the world really is. This is all physical nonsense. I mean, this is just garbage, is what this is. It is. It's just it's physical trash. This is nothing. This is when we die, we are just going to scrape all this off, and we're going to go do whatever it is we're supposed to do. Whether you're going to go to heaven or hell, or we're south hell, or no, was it? Did he say it was south? I don't know. Book of Enoch says that we don't really. It's not really hell. It's like a holding space. It's like a cave, which makes me wonder about all those depictions of hell where you're underneath the ground and it's in a cave. I don't know. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But this is just physical. This is just. I mean, we're just living our lives with all this shit. It's all this stuff. I have all this crap here that I've collected over the past 42 years of my life, 41 years of my life, and I look at it all now and I'm just like, it's just stuff. It's all going to burn. I mean, it's eventually going to be scraped off the earth, and whatever. I mean, it doesn't. I'm trying to prepare for the next place. And if you don't want to hear that, again, if you don't want to hear any of this, man, you turn the video off, whatever. I don't. I'm doing my damnedest not to force anything down anybody's throats, because I've always had it forced down my throat. I've always been told that I'm automatically going to hell because I don't believe in this, or this is what's going to happen because I don't believe in that. And yeah. I don't think it works that way. I think that people, as long as they can confess it and they know it, then Jesus will either take you and push you towards the right direction, or he won't. I can't help that. I can't help that. I did for a while there. All I wanted to do was like save everybody, and then I had to realize that no, I can't save everybody, because some people can't be saved. It's just the way it is. Can't be saved. You're either going to believe or you're not. And there are going to be some people that it even said, I don't remember if it said it in Revelations or if Jesus actually said it, but some people are going to get to heaven and not feel comfortable in it. That's not the place that they're going to be able to be, because they just are not going to be able to handle it. I heard that and I was like, oh, that makes sense too. Yeah, I mean, it's not. I'm getting way off track. I know I'm getting way off track. I need to get back on track. So, anyways, he creates animals, all this other stuff. I am starting to believe. It's taken me a second to believe it, but I'm starting to believe that he created herbivore dinosaurs. That sounds nuts, but look this shit up. Look up depictions of man and dinosaurs. There's Romans. The Chinese have them. Now you can call them dragons. I'm going to get to that in a second. There was South America. I think there was some South American ones that had it. I know there was some really, really old ones from Native Americans that had what looked like a brontosaurus on it. They found what was the one, the footprints in Texas, where they have dinosaur tracks that have human footprints that walk through them. You can say whatever you want to say about that. I don't know. That just sounds weird to me. But I think it's what happened. I think he made dinosaurs. Look at Behemoth. I can't remember the exact line. It's in the book. I think he was talking to Job. Behold Behemoth. When you go through the when you go through how they were talking about Behemoth, they talk about the tail being the size of a cedar, and just that's a big animal. I heard people saying, "Oh, they're talking about a hippo, or they're talking about an elephant, or they're talking about this." It's like, no, man, I had to go over that part. I had to go over that part of that story or that passage a couple times to really put it in my head. And no, he was describing like a brontosaurus. I mean, that's a big animal he was talking about. And it's not a unicorn. And we can talk about unicorns too. The fucking unicorns. Everyone's like, oh, let me show me a unicorn that the Bible talked about. Okay, so let's talk about unicorns in the Bible before we go anywhere else. If you want to talk about unicorns in the Bible, I want you to go to Webster's Dictionary, the first edition. I think it was 1836, 1838, somewhere around there. I could be wrong. It could be 1898 for all I remember. Shit, I don't know. Go look it up in the first edition of Webster's Dictionary. Look up the word unicorn. Unicorn means any animal that has one horn. And it was saying something about it's a certain type of rhinoceros. Rhinoceros have two horns, but this one has one horn. I think it was Cacaopus or something. I don't. Starts with a C, I think. Could start with an S. Every time I say something starts with a C, it probably starts with an S. I don't know. Look that shit up. It's not a unicorn. It's not a horse with fucking wings and a. No. I had to hear that, and I had to go look it up for myself, and it was like, damn, that's right. That's that. There it is, right there. Behold the unicorn with all of its might and whatever, yada yada yada. I got my phone up here. I'm about ready to look up unicorn. I can't get rid of that. There we go. But yes, everybody wants to talk about unicorns in the Bible. No, sorry, man. It's not what it was. First edition. Okay, here we go. I type very slowly. This is not 1828. What did I say? 1838? I was close, man. 10 years. Unicorn. This is Webster's Dictionary, 1828. An animal with one horn, the monoceros. The name is often applied to the rhinoceros. Oh, the rhinoceros. Okay. The sea unicorn is a fish of the whale kind called a narwhal. Believe it or not, narwhals are real. Blew my mind. I'm like, oh shit. And it is also a fowl. It is fossil unicorn or fossil unicorn's horn, substance used in medicine. A terrene crustaceous spar. There is absolutely nothing about a horse with a horn coming out of its head. Interesting fact about unicorns, though, that they're an occultic symbol. They mean rebirth. They are the sign of rebirth, of new life, of new things. I think there was something about purity, virginity, something. They have nothing to do with anything biblical whatsoever. Sorry, unicorns were not in the Bible. Thank you very much. Changing tables. Okay. Anyways, he created all these animals, these amazing, probably animals we've never even remotely thought about. And there's definitely probably a lot of them that we've never even knew existed. I need to when I actually go through the Bible, because right now I'm just listening to it at work. I don't really have too much time to actually sit down and read it. It's a big book, man. It's a big book that you have to sit down and study. But when I do sit down and study the book, I will be highlighting animals, what animals that they exactly knew. Not even just pre-flood, but post-flood. Post-flood, every animal that's in the Bible, I need to find out what it is, because I want to know exactly what kinds of animals they had, because Enoch talks about specific animals. There's like 5 or 6 different things that Actually, there was like a whole list of them that he had said, and I was like, well, they knew about this, they knew about this, they knew about this, but they're not talking about any of these other ones that we know about. So where did those other ones come from? Microevolution, maybe? I don't know. We'll get into that too. So, anyways, this is getting long. You might have to take half a step on this. I don't know. So, anyways, he created all these animals, and then he creates man. And the way that I look at this is that this whole thing has been about having perfect humans. Some people like to say, there's been some people that have, said, it's the Bible's what it is. It's a genealogy from Adam to Jesus. It's what it is, because there's a perfect genetic code that goes through the whole thing. And they talk about it several times about the seed being passed down, or the seed multiplying, or the seed doing this, or the seed doing that. And I think that's the one thing that we tend to miss, is that God was trying to create perfect beings. He was trying to find perfect beings, not only in spirit, not only in mind, but physically as well, that he could take up to heaven with him. I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say it without just making it seem like God is less than what he is. I because it honestly sounds like he's. I put it into his perspective one time, and I have since dropped that because it takes a lot away from God. That he's a scientist in a laboratory. Now think about it that way. He's a scientist in a laboratory, and something happened wherever he is, and he needs to repopulate where he is. So he is trying to create perfect people, perfect beings, to be with him because he's lonely. He needs more people. And I think that's a good way to look at it, even though that's not it, because again, it takes away from his power and glory and all that. But that's something that popped into my head, and I was like, yeah, that it kind of makes sense. It puts it in perspective. So based upon that, you can. I had to look behind me because I'm looking in the reflection of my TV, and it just looked weird back there. I don't know. When you put it into that perspective, you can understand why certain things happen in the Bible, and why God told certain people to go wipe out entire cities of peoples because their code was bad. We'll get into that too. I keep skipping ahead. That's the one thing I've always done, is I skip ahead too much. So he creates Adam. The normal human body, has 46 chromosomes. Adam would have only had 23 because he was the first. He was the perfect. Actually, I mean, if you really think about it, Adam probably had. I mean, he split Eve off of Adam. I don't want to get into. I mean, that's going into splits. I don't even know. So, anyways, he has Adam. He creates Eve out of his rib. I don't know exactly what the whole thing about that is. It's got to be something to it. Every time I hear something in the Bible, every time somebody, there's a certain phrase that's said, you're supposed to do this a certain way, this a certain way, this and that. You find out later on that there's a reason for it. Either a medical reason whenever they say don't do this, don't do that, or whether it's some kind of other reason. I don't know, but there's got to be a reason for that. There's got to be something to it, and I don't know, something that we haven't seen yet. Maybe. I don't really know. So, anyways, he creates Eve. Of course, they have Cain and Abel. Abel first. No, no, no. Let's go back. Let's go back just a tiny bit because I missed something. I missed something. So, of course, you have the snake in the garden. You have the snake tempting Eve with the fruit of the tree of knowledge, which Enoch says looks like the fruit that grows on a vine. So it's not an apple. Enoch said that it looks like it could be grapes. I don't know. I don't know. He gave a pretty definite understanding what the tree of knowledge looked like. So he said that the fruit grows like the fruit on the vines. So it could have been something that was similar to grapes. Just a random thing. I don't know. Enoch's a pretty cool book, man. If you want to know anything about your Bible, go read the Enoch because it helps expand it. It doesn't detract. It's not heretical. It helps expand it. It helps kind of fill in the blanks of some of the more interesting stuff. But the snake tempts Eve, and then we get that whole thing where they get kicked out, and God says to the snake that one of these days her seed will hurt your head. I think that's what it was. Hurt your head, and your seed will hurt his heel. Now, I don't remember exactly what they said that meant, but that's one of those points where you look at it and say, her seed will kill you, basically, will destroy you. I mean, that right there is an automatic prophetic warning about Jesus Christ coming back and taking care of things. But on a totally different level, I think there was something else more to that. I think that there was more to that than we got to hear. I took that and I kind of, as I was going through the Bible, as I was hearing about all these other cultures, all these other, pagan cultures, and all of their beliefs, especially through Christmas, because we were going through Christmas and I was hearing about all these other pagan cultures that used to bring children to sacrifice on the laps of the statues. That's where we get sitting on Santa Claus' lap. It is what it is. But as I was listening to all these, I started thinking, why are they constantly trying to kill children, especially firstborn children? And it kind of snapped into my head is I think what we missed in that passage was that there will be a child, a firstborn child that will kill you. Firstborn male too, at that. And I think we either missed that or it wasn't really given to us. But I think that's the key. I think that's the connection. I think that's where it goes. I think that that's why. I think that's all the child sacrifices that you hear about. The census that was made right before Jesus was born. The Abel being killed by Cain. Abel was the first. So the devil convinced Cain to kill him. He was the first. Makes you think, man. It really makes you think. And if I again, when I sit down with the Bible, when I go through it step by step by step, I'm going to be looking through those genealogies. And I'm going to be trying to figure out who was the firstborn and just how bad their life was. I think there's a key there somewhere. I think there's a key. So anyways, that happens. Inside the book, they say that Adam had plenty of other sons and daughters. It eventually started multiplying as it went. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with believing that there was a lot of interbreeding, because you have to think that Adam was the pure DNA. I mean, nowadays if you have sex with your sister or your first cousin, you could wind up with some messed up kids, but back then he was purebred. I mean, he was the best DNA that a human being could get. So I think that there was no problem from the time of Adam to the time of Noah for there to be a fair amount of inbreeding that wouldn't hurt anybody. It'd be no sweat. So you go along and you start hearing the stories about the angels started coming down to the daughters of men and started breeding with them, started making the Nephilim, and a lot of people say that the Nephilim are these weird hybrid creatures that you see constantly. The weird winged beasts, and the chimeras and all this other kind of stuff. But then you read Enoch, and Enoch says that the angels came down and bred with the women and had giants. Now, you can believe it or not, this is where it starts getting crazy. This is where the fun starts happening. This is where your imagination has to start taking effect. So, when I talk about giants, we're not talking about like 10 feet tall guys. We're talking about guys that are 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet. I mean, big dudes. Big dudes. And I don't know if I want to believe it or not because I can't really prove it to myself. I can't really go out and say, oh, well, they found some big bones of some big guys out in the world, that proves the giants are real. I don't know that. I can't, some of the pictures I see look fake as hell. Some of the pictures I see look pretty compelling. I don't know. But these are big guys. These are big dudes. You marry that with the new thing that's coming out now about giant trees. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about this stuff or not. Giant trees. And we're not just talking about trees that are 300, 400 feet long. We're talking about giant trees that are 10 to 20 miles high. Big bastards. Big, huge trees. I'm starting to believe. I can tell you that much right now. I can see it and I believe it. If I can think that the world is flat, by God, I can think that there's 20-mile high trees. Where this comes from are all the mesas and plateaus and everything around the world. What is it? Devil's Tower, the big one, the one that was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. A lot of other ones. I can't even think of all the names of them right now. I watched like 40 different documentaries on them. I can't remember half of the names. There's right off the coast of Ireland. There's like a whole bunch of these hexagonal rocks, upshoots. All of these hexagonal rocks that have like they've come up to a point and they've just kind of stopped. And you hear scientists say, well, that's lava. That's lava activity. That's what it was. It was a volcano, and all this lava came up, and when it cooled, it turned into these hexagonal shapes. If you want to believe that, you can believe that. I personally don't believe that. I've. So what are you saying that a volcano came up and all this lava came up into it and then just decided to coagulate in the hexagon? I mean, does lava do that? Can anybody prove that to me somewhere that lava does this? I've seen lava, man. Lava has no rhyme or reason to it. It moves. That's all it does. It goes to a place and it just kind of, it doesn't make hexagonal shapes. It's just, that's weird, man. I can believe that those are trees. I can believe that those at one point in time were gigantic fucking trees, and you had to have big dudes cut them down. I mean, you're talking about a 20-mile high tree because the base of this thing, if the base of this thing is 10 miles across, well, not miles. Sorry, what am I thinking? 10 miles across? It's got to be a mile across, maybe. I don't know how big Devil's Tower is, but some of these places they're huge, they're big. But if you're talking about a tree that's half a mile across, then this thing's got to be 15 miles high. If it's a tree that's 10, 15 miles high and is shaved perfectly on the top of it, somebody had to cut that big bastard down. So you're talking about a dude that's 5 miles high. That's a giant. That's a big dude. I thought it was crazy. I see, man, you got to be out of your mind, man. It's a giants that are this damn tall, and so then you start seeing the pictures of the you start seeing the pictures of the mountains. You know, the islands that are out there where it looks like there's a guy sleeping. You've seen Moana where the chick lays down in a whole thing. But then you start looking at these guys show you the faces in the rocks and not Mount Rushmore, you know, get out of there. No, I'm talking about the faces in the rocks, you know, where it looks like a guy was sitting down and it's like the rocks are the shape of his face, you know. Just stuff that just doesn't look, it looks like a human being. You know, it just looks like a big ass guy just kind of sat down and died. It's what it looks like. And it's, you know, it's rock. And you're just like, oh man, you're kind of fishing there, you know, you're really fishing there. And then I start thinking about the legends, all these legends I heard. I took one semester of ancient mythology, and one of the other things that's always fascinated me about the world is ancient mythology: Greek, Roman, Sumerian, Egyptian, especially Egyptian. I used to love Egyptian mythology whenever I was a kid. All of these tales that they would have of the Titans, of these big, huge guys that would roam the world, that, you know, were felled and made this island or made this mountain, or, you know, this guy turned to stone. You hear the stories about Medusa that would turn these big assholes to stone. You know, you'd hear these stories and you're like, woof. Okay, I mean, if you're gonna buy into the Book of Enoch, if you're gonna buy into the Bible, you gotta buy into some of this stuff, because I don't. What fascinates me more than anything else is when you hear about the stories of ancient cultures like Egypt and Greece and all this stuff, you hardly ever hear the true tales. You know, it's like, oh, Saturday morning such and such woke up and did this and did that. You don't hear that stuff. You hear the mythology stories. You hear the stories that have been passed down generation, and a lot of those stories are the same through most of these cultures. I've known that for a long time. Is, you know, this is this and this is this and this, and but when you hear them in the context of, hey, by the way, there could be giants in the world, it's these giant trees. Think about Paul Bunyan. Paul Bunyan. That was like, whoa, Paul Bunyan. You know, I mean, that's kind of close to home. That's just North America. You know, that's Canadian. That's like, it was this really tall guy that used to walk around with the big blue ox, gigantic animals. That, you know, and it's like, that goes back to the whole thing as well. It's like, it's possible. Anything's possible. It could it be probable? I don't know. I'm at that point where I believe it, but I can't tell. But it's there. It's there, and you go looking at it. You go looking into it. And it's like, you know. I don't know. I don't know. If you can believe it, you can believe it. If you can't believe it, you can't believe it. I mean, it is what it is. I'm in there though. I can see it. I can understand it. So you had big ass trees, big huge trees on the world producing massive amounts of oxygen. Absolutely massive amounts of oxygen. You have to think, too, that this was pre flood. This was before everything was covered in rocks and dirt. I don't know how much water there was. It says in the book that it wasn't really raining, that there was like a mist. There was just a mist that happened. So it's not raining. So you're not getting like drowned it out with water, but there's oxygen everywhere. And it has been proven that if you take pure oxygen, your body will heal itself past the point that it's supposed to be healed. So what would it have been like if you were in this era with these big trees? Adam himself could have been a giant. It's possible. It's there. It's possible. He could have been a giant himself. I'm not saying Adam was 20 feet tall or 20 miles tall or anything. He could have been 10 feet, 20 feet. He could very well have been. We're our bodies, our body chemistry, our DNA is breaking down. I mean, we've done nothing but get worse and worse and worse through the years. So if he was the pinnacle, just you can see the shrinkage. But with that amount of oxygen, with that amount of oxygen, the trees would have produced fruit that was the size of this room. The animals would have been huge. You would have had lizards that would have grown up into some of the craziest dinosaurs ever. You would have had guys whose skulls would have been crazy, because they say that your skull, the older you get, your skull keeps growing. I don't know if that's true or not. I guess it is. Shit. But these guys were living to be hundreds of years old, according to the Bible. Again, you don't have to believe it. I don't care if you believe it or not. I'm just trying to get it out for my own sake and maybe for whoever can get it. These guys were living to be 900 years old because they had pure oxygen, because they had the best food in the world, because these guys could live like that. I mean, it was perfect. It was even after they got kicked out of Eden. Yes, jeez. Even after they got kicked out of Eden, it was still a paradise. It was still beautiful. I mean, you still had all this stuff that you could. I mean, yes, you were starting to decay at that point, but you had this world that we can't even possibly imagine. I mean, it was crazy. So, another thing I like to mention is another thing I mentioned last night was that these guys had the knowledge of everything, because the one thing God said was they cannot eat of the tree of knowledge, or else they will be like us, or they will know what we know. Pretty much is what it was. Adam and Eve both ate from the tree of knowledge. They knew everything there was to know as soon as they did that. I don't think it was. I think in the Garden of Eden, it was like, hey, we're all naked, we're hanging out, we're eating fruit, we're chilling out, we got all these animals around us. But as soon as they got kicked out, they had knowledge. The first thing I think they started doing was they started going out and Minecrafting the hell out of the place. That's the best way I can say it. They started punching trees, they started making houses, they started making iron, they started making all this stuff. I think it was far more technologically advanced than we could ever even remotely imagine, because they knew everything. They had it. They had it. They knew it. They had it. The best way I can explain that is there was, and you don't have to believe this because I don't know. All I can do is go by what somebody told me. They found a bell inside of a coal mine, inside of a piece of coal. A bell made out of gold. That coal had to have been pre-flood. They were able to shape metal. And it was really intricate, too. It was a really beautiful bell. Go look that up. But They had that technology. They had to have had that technology. They had technology that we can't do now. Even post flood, we'll get up into post flood here in a second. But even post flood, they had to have technologies that we can't even possibly do. Uh, if you even remotely think that the pyramids were done just by a bunch of guys rolling rocks around over 50 years, more power to you. But I can't believe that anymore, man. You see the stuff. There are too many oddities in the world for us to not think that there was something else going on. I mean, really, there's too much. People are going to say ancient aliens. Oh, aliens came down and helped them out. Well, what if it wasn't aliens? What if they were angels? What if they were fallen angels that came down with their technology? Stuff that we might not have known. They helped us out a little bit. I don't know. According to Enoch, all of the angels that came down, they told us all the bad stuff. Maybe that's what the tree of knowledge was about. Was that it taught us what we were, and it taught us how to do certain things. But the angels came down and they said, "Hey, we know the rest of it. We know all the other crap that'll get you into trouble." And maybe there was some stuff that Adam didn't pass down to certain kids. Maybe there was a lot of. Could you think about the burden, that kind of burden as a father, that you're the first guy, you know everything, and you really just don't want your kids to know half of that stuff. It's like, man, I know all this great stuff I could tell the kids, but boy, I don't want them learning this. As a half-assed dad myself, I can understand that. It's like, dude, it's great that you wanna learn how to, you want to learn how to talk to girls, but I don't want to teach you about condoms just yet. You know what I mean? It's just there. It's there. But think about that for a second. Just put that in perspective. So, anyways, so they had that knowledge. I think they had that technology, and then somewhere along the line, the angels come down. They start breeding with women. And then they start messing with DNA. Now, there's a thing going around where they're talking about serpentine DNA. You can go look at how they talk about the royal family, how they talk about how all of the presidents are related to each other. There's a lot of it where there's a lot of people that are related to other people. There's a bloodline that goes through it all. And if you're watching this, you're probably not a part of that bloodline. It is what it is, because whoever is a part of that bloodline, they know what the hell's going on. They're off doing whatever they're doing. They're ruining the world is what they're doing. But I think that was a part of it. I think a lot of it was... I think Satan knew that eventually the seed of man was going to hurt him, so he did everything in his power to try to ruin the seed of man. He corrupted the seed of man. In the days of Noah, all flesh was corrupted. Now, there's preachers out there that'll say, when they say that all flesh was corrupted, it was their minds, their spirits were corrupted. What if it was literal? Because they were talking about these crazy monsters and these giants and all this other kind of stuff that was walking around during those times. Now, do we just pass over that stuff whenever we're reading the book? That's the one thing I've always wondered about is when preachers and pastors are up there in front of a congregation on Sundays, do they just kind of just pass over that? There were giants and whatever. David fought Goliath. Goliath, they say it was big. He's probably only about 6, 7 feet tall. He wasn't that big. I mean, do you really go over that? Just kind of like skip over that? I, when I read it, I see it. It says there were giants in the things, and they're talking about trees that are huge. Enoch. Again, I'm going back to Enoch. I haven't done Jasher or Jubilees yet. I'm going to be doing those next. Enoch talks about trees that are the size of mountains. Now, of course, he was talking about the tree of life whenever he went to the ends of the earth. He's talking about big trees. There's legends in Lebanon about the cedars. There's a lot of talk about the cedars of Lebanon. Look this up in the Bible. The cedars of Lebanon, about the great cedars of Lebanon. There's a tale, there's a legend about Lebanon, about the cedars of Lebanon being huge, about these trees being monstrous, and there's some of these flat-ass plateaus out there in Lebanon. So, it's there. There's something there. There's something to it. It's possible. It's at least possible. And again, you don't have to believe me. It should not change your faith. It should strengthen your faith. Not only should it strengthen your faith, it should give you the ability to be able to go tell somebody else and say, "Hey, do you know this?" And like I said, like it was for me, that when you hear it, something in the back of your head just kind of sparks, and you're like, oh, hey, you get it. I need to blow my nose. So all the flesh was corrupted whenever Noah went onto the ark. And through the whole Old Testament, of course, like I said, there's a genealogy. I mean, it follows bam, 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 Adam, bam, 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 Enoch, bam, Methuselah, something, Noah. I always thought those genealogies were stupid. I was like, why would you care? And then I heard that like Jewish people really, they care about the genealogies. I never understood why. Now I do. Now I understand why, because it's like bam, 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 and then after the flood, you had Noah, who was pure in his generations. It literally says it in the book. He was pure, which meant his DNA was untouched. It's possible his wife was pure. Somebody had said there was a passage in there that said that his wife could have been impure. Noah had 3 sons. If his wife was pure, his 3 sons were pure. But his 3 sons had daughters that were impure because they were of whatever. So the bad seed continued from there. And there's a whole thing with Noah and his kids and how they split off. And I'm not going to get into that because I don't know too much about it. How they split with became the Israelites and Abraham, and I don't really know. I could process it in my head, but last night as I was trying to explain it to Angie, it just got all kinds of messed up, and I was like, I don't want to steer anybody wrong here. I really don't. I'm just trying to tell you the way that I see it. So we're just going to skip over that stuff. I might come back to that in a video later on. But so this flood, it is entirely possible there was a flood. There are so many different cultures all over the world that talk about a flood happening. They talk about a great flood that came over everything. They talk about a boat. They talk about this boat having 8 people on it and a whole bunch of animals. Now, I've known that for a while. And in my head, for a long time, I've thought, well, that was just because there was a flood around the world. And it was just a local legend. Everybody got themselves onto a boat. They just grabbed all the animals and stuff that they could put on it, and then they floated away, and they were happy. They landed, and they were done. I did not know the details. They never tell you the details of these stories. The details are there were exactly 8 people on this boat. Some of these stories even say there were 4 men and 4 women on this boat. Some of them say that there were exactly 2 of each animal on this boat. And Some of them say that the boat landed uh, exactly the way that it landed. It landed on the side of a mountain in a certain place, and they had the birds that they let out and all this stuff. And it's like, that's an oral tradition. That's Noah coming off the ark and his kids having kids, and his kids telling their kids, and their kids telling their kids, and eventually everybody's saying, this is where we came from. Because that's what you do. You tell your kids, hey, this is where we came from. I can just see it, man. I can see Noah kind of sitting down with his great grandkids being like, hey, okay, in the beginning, God, yada yada yada, and then we all went on this boat, did this, did that. So I could see that, man. It makes sense. It really does. It makes sense. And then I don't. The reason we don't have a lot of post or pre-flood legends is because that's the kind of stuff that Noah didn't want us knowing about. And he would have been like, "Look, we're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about this, and we're not going to talk about this because, oh man, that was that bad night in Vegas. I don't want to get into that stuff. So we're gonna skip over this, but we're gonna talk about this. This will be okay." But I can see that, because especially if it was Noah's lineage, the only way you would have known it would be Noah, because he would have known, because his fathers would have told him, he would have told him. So the flood came through, covered everything. And during this flood, everything flipped on its ass. We know this. It rained forever and a day. I've heard evolutionists say that there's no possible way that it could have rained for 40 days and 40 nights or whatever it was, because that much rain all at once to be able to flood the world would have made so much heat that it would have boiled the world alive, and it's like, okay, well, no, okay, I understand that, but the way that weather patterns work, every time you have a high front, or whenever it gets really, really hot, usually right behind it, there's a cold front. It's the way it's always been. You ever notice that whenever they say it's going to rain, it usually gets like 20 degrees or 20 degrees. You hear me? Oh, that's burning up. It usually gets like 5 to 10 degrees warmer the day before. You ever had that where it's like it's the dead middle of summer? It's like, God, it's hot as hell. What in the world? And you look towards the west, and hey, there's some clouds coming. It happens. It's a high front. It's a low front. So if you give that much heat into the world, especially if you follow the rest of the story about the flood, where the earth cracked open as well, and waters came up from under the earth. Because remember, there's waters above and waters below. If the earth cracked, waters came up underneath as well, you would have had these crazy ass weather patterns that would have driven all of the heat and all of the cold air out, straight out. And on a flat earth model, I don't know if anybody, if you know what flat earth is, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what flat earth is, there, I have a plate. Look at this. I got a plate. You don't know how we discuss flat earth. The dead center would be north, okay? And all the continents would come out this way. And so this would be north. Everything around here would be south. And if you went clockwise would be west. Clockwise would be west. And counterclockwise would be east, even though looking at it on the image here, that's clockwise. Okay, so clockwise. This is clockwise on this plate. The way you guys are looking at it, this is clockwise. So this would be west, this would be east, that's north, and then it expands out that way. So if all the heat went out to the edges and turned into cold, if the cold would have followed it, you would have an ice wall. It's what we talk about on Flat Earth. That's what it would be. It would be an ice wall. It's possible. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that whenever you put it in that perspective again, there it is. Oh wow, I had a plate. That's funny. So so that would have explained how that happened. Now, I think there was a ton of ice, just a crap ton of ice, a lot more than we have. They talk about ice ages, and I kind of agree. There was an ice age. There was a lot of this water that was built up inside of this ice that the ocean levels were way lower than we think they are now. Way lower than we think they are now. Enough that we could cross out into different countries. When you look at like topographical maps, not topographical maps. Shit, I can't think of the name of it. When you look at like the globe, when you look at the globe and stuff, and you can feel the bumps of where the mountains are, and they talk about the abysses being lower and stuff like that. They're with the maps that they're finding now about the ocean, about what's underneath the ocean, especially around land. There's like a good 20 miles of coast off of most of these places. A lot of these, they connect to each other. Australia, there's a land bridge that if you drop the water, I think they said if you drop the water 200 feet, I think it's what it was, 100 feet, 200 feet, that you could have crossed that very easily. There's a lot of places like this. For whatever reason, and I don't know why, everybody in the world seems to think that all the land that we have now and all the water we have now has been here for time immemorial. Then how do you explain all of these cities that are buried underneath the water? It blows my mind. There's stories about just off the coast of Japan, just off the coast of China, just off the coast of Bermuda, the Bermuda Triangle, that they're finding cities, they're finding roadways. How do you explain that? This stuff was underneath the water. That means that the water was way lower than it was now. It's there. I mean, you don't have to believe me. Hell, man, I'll tell you what. There was this great scuba technology driven society. They all lived underwater, yet somewhere along the line they killed all each other off, and so they're just not there anymore. They made all these cities underneath the water. We just happen to find them. Hey, whatever. That was me rolling my. I don't know if that did that translate or did you say rolling my eyes. That's me rolling my eyes. That boggles my mind. I've had arguments with people over that. It's like, how can you see this underwater and not think that it wasn't a civilization? Oh well, it's probably just because the land fell. The land didn't fall. The water rose. Maybe. I don't know. Shit. Don't believe me. Don't believe me. I don't know. I don't think the land fall. I don't think the land fell. Sorry, I really don't. I think the water rose. I really do. I've thought that for a long time now, is that the water rose. And there's a couple different people that say the ice ages, whenever the ice melted, that's what happened, is all the water rose and yada, yada, yada. I don't know. But anyways, I think it's entirely possible for all the animals to come off the boat, go do some breeding within 500-600 years to be able to make a bunch of different species. It's not hard. Microevolution is a thing, but it's not hard to do. They say that you can breed you can take two dogs and breed out a completely different set of dogs within 4 generations. I think that's what it said. 4 generations. Now, some people like to put put that into the perspective of human beings. 4 generations for human beings is what? It's about 80 to 100 years. That's 4 generations for human beings. A dog's generation is only about 15 to 20 years, if that. I think dogs only get about 10 average years, maybe 12 average years. 4 generations of dogs at most is 50, 60 years. It takes 60 years. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. It takes 70 to 80 years to breed out a completely different dog. That's one human being's lifetime. That's just dogs. What about bulls? I've heard that they've bred buffalo, purebred buffalo, back into existence, back off of the endangered species list. They bred them back into existence by mating them with cows. And eventually they had so many buffalo that all the buffalo were called beefalo because they were buffalo cows is what they were. They were called beefalo because but they eventually bred them up to the point to where it was just the strain of buffalo. So now we have purebred buffalo that were on the endangered species list. That took what did it take them? It was maybe 100 years? 100 years? Really? It's possible. It's possible. I mean, I for all the different species of the world, it's possible. Microevolution, I can agree with that 100%. The massive changes, like a dog turning into a cat, I don't see it. I've never saw it. I've always thought that the missing link thing between apes and humans, I always thought that was stupid. I just like I don't see it. I've never saw it. I never thought it was a legitimate thing. It's like, no, humans had to come from somewhere because we are not, even though they are similar to us, we're not like them. And hell, man, we don't even know if apes descended from us. That's an argument I've had. That's an argument. I think it was either Andrew Kous. I'm dropping names. You know it's bad when I'm dropping names. It was either Andrew Kous or Scott Smith. These are 2 guys I went to high school with. Both of them were Christians, and a lot of the questions that I had of the world were because of them. Andrew used to say, there is no such thing as gravity. The earth sucks. Think about that for a second. But one of them used to tell me that, how do you know that we evolved from apes? They could have de-evolved from us. It's possible. You think about that because our DNA is constantly breaking down. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. This is the way it is. We're breaking down as a society. So, what would happen if there was just a brand of or like a little subset of humans that went off to some that made their way into the forests of Africa? And I'm not trying to be racist. I'm not. I'm really not. Because the first thing, my racist head, my old school racist head, the first thing that did was monkeys. And I'm sorry. I apologize for even saying that. But what would happen if just a group of them they made their way out there and they didn't have the capabilities of creating clothes and stuff like that, and they just evolved to have fur. And eventually you're going to have to learn how to climb a tree with your feet. So what if their feet, because their feet are so similar to ours, they absolutely are. So what if their feet turn into hands? Think about it. And what if a monkey's tail, because they thought it'd be nice to have an extra appendage, they just grew a tail. It's possible. That's the other thing I need to look for too. Inside of the Bible, I need to look for any place that it says there were apes. Because I haven't found one yet, or if I have, I glossed over it. I don't know, but I need to find a place where it says something about monkeys or apes in the Bible. Because if it says monkeys or apes in the Bible, then you can kind of, you can start, you can put my whole theory to rest about us, about monkeys de-evolving from us. I don't know. I mean, it's there. It's mentally there, and I don't think it takes thousands, or not thousands. I don't think it takes millions and millions and millions of years to do this. I think it takes 1,000 years. I really do. I think it only take about 1,000 years for a monkey to devolve from a man. I don't know, man. It's pretty crazy what animals, what beings will do when they really need to. Uh, it's like your skin becoming darker whenever you're out in the sun a lot. My skin is permanently tanned. I mean, it's not perfect and you can't see it here, but I have a dark tan complexion. No matter how much I stay inside, I will always have a dark tan complexion because when I lived in Florida, that's all you did was stay outside and play. So 18 years of that, and I have a tan that won't wash off. Pretty much, that's what I say. I have a permanent sock tan on my feet. It's permanent. No matter how light I get, no matter how much I stay indoors, I will always have this line. It is slowly fading now that I'm older, but I still have it. I've worn ankle socks my entire life, and there's a line. It's there. It's been there. That's 16 years. When I moved back up to Indiana, you don't get to wear shorts very much. There was a period of 5 or 6 years where I was wearing high socks that were up a little bit up on my calf, but I still have a line where my ankle socks were. I don't. That's my body changing. That's my body evolving. That's what that is. That's evolution. That's microevolution. That's my body evolving. So I can believe that. I just can't believe that I am eventually going to turn into some light being, or my offspring are going to turn into some kind of light being, or I don't know. I don't see that happening. But a monkey de-evolving from a human, I can see that. It makes so much sense now. It makes more sense now than having to wait for a million years for a monkey to slowly evolve to a human being. Millions and millions of years. So, anyways, that's after the flood. That's after that happened, and there was still some kind of tainted seed going on. So we're going to skip through a lot of the good stuff. Moses and the Israelites and all that. I am not completely up through the New Testament. I have read several parts of the New Testament, so I kind of know where it goes. There is a big genealogy in there. I know that much. And some guys have said that you can follow the genealogy all the way through. That it can go. You can follow it. If you do it really closely, you can follow it from Adam all the way up to Jesus. I don't know how, but you can. I think God picked Mary because she was the last where he could get it the purest. I think that's how it works. So that's why he chose her. Now, going back for a second, I know I talked about it a little bit before. I think all the wars and stuff that were fought over God's name back in the Old Testament, whenever he would tell certain guys, go kill them, make sure you kill all the women, all the children, all the animals, make sure you wipe the slate clean. I think that's because of bad genealogies. That's I think that he was trying to get rid of the bad seed because he knew that if that seed got worse and worse, that he'd have a problem with it. So he was he was trying to wipe the slate clean, and I just don't think he could, because there were several times where they were taking a little bit too much, they were doing a little bit too much. It's some interesting reading. Sometimes it gets a little over itself, and I mean, it's kind of hard to follow. That's why I said, when I sit down with the book and I go through it, I'm really going to be able to sit down with the book and figure out what's what. I'm going to take notes, and I'm going to try to do my own genealogy map and all that stuff. So, anyways, we get up to Jesus and Mary. I think she had that pure blood, or enough of it that he could use. He did not want her to mate with Joseph to have the firstborn son, because he wanted for our Savior to be pure. You guys have heard about the Holy Grail. You guys have heard about the bloodline of Christ, about the pure bloodline of Christ, about how him having a kid and Da Vinci Code. I like the Da Vinci Code. I liked the idea at the time, and I tell you what, I started doing research and trying to find out. I really did. Back then, I was like, oh man, we were going to be able to find, God's children, or Jesus' children and all. I think the truth of the matter is, God made Mary have Jesus because she was pure. When Jesus was born, he would have only had 23 chromosomes. And he would have had the perfect ones. He would have been pure. And he was who he was. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to, you're either going to have to go do your own research, and I'm not going to sit here and try to preach it from the mountains. But I think that's how it works. I think that's how it works. I really do. I think the way that it happened and it went through was that we were able to get the last pure descendant of Adam. I mean, I'm sure there are still genealogical descendants that have the same bloodline, but I don't think it's as pure as Jesus would have been, because after Jesus was born, Joseph and Mary had other kids, but they would not have been as pure. So. But in my mind, I see that. In my mind, I can see the path. I can see the path that it took. So that was that. What was the other thing I wanted to say? I wanted to say something about it too. There were other things I wanted to say about Jesus. You guys need to do some research about December 25th. You need to get off the high horse about Christmas, because a lot of people aren't going to like it. A lot of people are going to get pissed off at me saying it. Christmas has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. Christmas is a pagan holiday. It always has been. Do your homework, but do not get strayed by hearing about all the other religions that have supposed saviors born of virgins. I was on that kick for a second. I was actually on that kick for a second all the way through December, because I've been telling Angie I'm not putting a tree up next year. I'm not doing it. All the things we do about Christmas are pagans. They're Roman, they're Egyptian, they're Sumerian, they're Phoenician. There's a little bit of Greek in there. And you know what? This is a Roman Empire that we are living in. The Roman Empire never died. And I'm tired of being lied to, and I'm not going to celebrate this anymore. Do your homework. Do your homework, man. It's not It's not what it is. But yeah, right through December, I was like, oh well, look, there was all these other religions that have this child that was born on this day to a virgin and yada yada yada. And then I really looked into it. This is why you have to look into it. This is why you have to do your studying. I looked at it. I had to go look at it. They weren't born of virgins. That's a myth. That's something that they put in there to make Christianity seem terrible. Talk about Tammuz and they talk about Nimrod and they talk about oh, for crying out loud, what are the other names? There's a million different other names, but you start finding out that one of them was born out of a rock. Uh, one of them was born. One of them was born out of fire or something. I don't know what the heck it was. Another one was born. The father was one of these giants, these mighty men. You start hearing this stuff and you're like, oh, it's just another lie. It's just another lie. There's only been one virgin birth of a savior. I mean, come on. And he wasn't born December 25th. Read the book. Inside the book. And this is something, it's crazy about Christmas. This is something that I used to use against Christians whenever I was agnostic atheist. I used to use this against Christians. I used to say, Christmas has nothing to do with Christ. Oh, yes, it does. He was born to blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no. No. It says in the book that when Joseph and Mary were looking for a place to settle down, they came across some shepherds in a pasture. They had their flock out for the night. Now, just because you live in the Middle East doesn't mean that it's warm 24/7. In the Middle East, in the dead of winter, it gets to about 4 below zero. It gets cold. It's the desert. Just because there's no snow on the ground doesn't mean it's freezing balls. I heard it somewhere in several different places that when they take their sheep out, when they take their flock out, they keep them out overnight because they want to bring them back in. They might as well just keep them out. It's warm. I mean, it's usually the best months to do that are between April and they say October, September, October, somewhere around there. I think it was October. And you start hearing about all of the weirdy things that happened. You hear Rob Skiba talking about Solarium, about rewinding Solarium back to September 11th of, what was it, 3 BC, 4 BC? I don't remember exactly what he said it was. September 11th of that year, and there was this grand conjunction of stars and planets in the sky that created this great light. And then you hear about the Chinese who have been Christians all of their lives. They just never knew it. That their ancient religion says that back around 5 or 6 BC that they saw a comet to the west that stayed in the sky for 70 days. This was around April. I think they said it started at either the middle of April or the end of April. And it went for 70 days. And they said that was about as much time as it would take for the 3 kings to cross the desert to get to Bethlehem. You take that information as you will. Go look it up. I don't know. It's one or the other. It could be a conjunction of both for all I know. I think it would be so ridiculously fitting for Jesus to be born September 11th. I mean, oh man, that just seems, when you understand that the world is evil, when you understand that these people do the crap that they do, that it's all a lie, that they manufacture all these all these different things that happen to us. When you understand this and you understand the reasons why, because there's a definite evil in the world, they're trying to force us into this evil paradigm. When you put it into that perspective, you're like, oh man, these guys are dicks. I've heard it. I don't know how many times I've heard it over the past week, and it just seems so fitting. But the devil doesn't play fair. Devil doesn't play fair. He really doesn't. It makes that perfect amount of sense. I'm sorry I did that. Wow, I did that. I'm sorry. Masonic hand gestures. We were just talking about that last night too. But it makes the perfect amount of sense that it would happen that way. Somebody's going to use that against me too. Somebody somewhere along the line, down the line, you know, if I even remotely catch with these videos, somebody down the line is going to say, oh, look, he was doing this, so he's got to be Illuminati. I'm sorry. I beg your forgiveness. I'm sorry. That was not even, that's just something you do. That's like I'm not even Italian and I do that. It's like, hey, it's that tiny little bit. Hey, sorry. No, I wasn't doing it like full on Illuminati, so I'm sorry about that. But it just makes that little tiny bit of sense that would be what it is. That's my Christmas rant. Looking at Christmas, seriously, don't just Google something and then like go for the first 2 posts on Google. Don't do that. That's just, man. Google, the guy that runs Google has even said he wants Google to be where you look it up and there's one posting of the information you need. That's crap. That's total dog crap. One posting for all the information you need? Bullshit. Give me a second opinion, man. Give me a third opinion. I want to see everybody's thoughts about this. I don't want to see what you want to tell me. Man, how Orwellian can you get? I get mad when I talk about this stuff because it pisses me off. It really does. It makes me mad to know how the world works and how all this stuff works. But I don't let it run my life because I know that there's a better place where I'm hopefully going to be going because I can see it now. So anyways, we're getting way off track and I've been doing this for an hour and a half. So after that happens, then you're looking at from 0 AD, 33 AD, sorry. Actually 30, I don't know. I don't know where exactly you want to put it. To about 30 AD to about maybe 500, 600 AD. And this is where you start getting into new stuff. The new shite. I started getting into I started hearing about mud floods. Look those up. Mud floods are an interesting concept. I don't know how I want to. I'm still researching, so I don't want to get too far into it. But then you get into a country called Tartaria. I don't know if it's real. I really don't know if it's real yet. What I can do is I can listen to these guys talk about Tartaria. I can look it up, and I can find out that there are flags, there are maps, there are all kinds of stuff about this place called Tartaria that used to stretch from the Soviet Union all the way around to North America. And that all of these cities that are inside of where Tartaria is, they all have the same architecture, they all have the same building structures, they all have very similar layouts. And the one thing that they all definitely have in common is that somewhere along the line they were all covered in 15 to 20 feet of mud. Like there's an entire level of these buildings that have been covered in mud. All these big cities, St. Petersburg in Russia, Chicago, Illinois, New York City, even here in Indianapolis. It's amazing. Canada has almost nothing up there. Canada's like a wasteland. You hear them talk about Siberia. You've always heard that Siberia is a wasteland, and yet they find these images and pictures and these paintings of all these people that lived in these areas that are supposed to be Arctic, and they're all out there naked. They're all out there naked as jaybirds. Some of them in bikinis. Some of them, it used to be a very different world. It used to be a very different world. It sometimes it just doesn't make any sense. The only time anybody ever got dressed up for anything was whenever they were getting their portrait taken. Every other time, whenever somebody was out, we're talking like pre 1800s. Whenever somebody else was out somewhere, they'd be buck ass naked, or they'd have a small thing on them, or you'd see guys out wrestling naked, or you'd see people out somewhere naked. I mean, it was like the entire place was warm. And I'm not just talking about like, though the people in Egypt were, they were naked because they had to be. It was hot as hell. I'm talking about people in Russia. Russia's cold. These people up there in Russia, and they're out there in bikinis. Now, how hot does it get in Russia? Does it get hot in Russia? I don't know. I haven't looked into it yet. It's like I said. So, it was a very different world. Very different world. So, you hear these guys, and they go on, and they talk about these mud floods that that supposedly happened around the 1750s to 1800s, somewhere around there, because the photos that they have where they're taking pictures of these places, all the streets are covered in mud. I mean, most of these places, the sidewalks are just boards. There's nobody in there's nobody on these streets. It could very well be that they could have been taking these pictures on a Sunday when everybody was in church, but you're taking pictures of ports. Not every sailor in the world goes to church. There's no ships in the harbors. There's no random people out there. It looks weird. It just looks weird. And then you see the streets that they just look like mud. It doesn't look like a road. It's like between the Roman Empire and the 1800s, we lost the ability to make streets out of rock. We had the technology to make brick streets in the 1800s and the 1700s. Yet we lost that technology for these pictures to be taken. It's weird, man. Go look that up. So anyways, I'm getting into that stuff, and I hear about Tartaria, and lo and behold, what starts happening is there's this guy out there on YouTube. I cannot remember his name to save my life. He's kind of hard to understand. He's got a really thick accent. I think it's Russian accent, really thick accent. But he starts going on about the dates on maps. Now, this is something I knew for a while. But I always thought it was like a stylized thing. I don't know. So whenever you see, now go look this up. Go look up dates on old maps. So you see the dates on maps whenever they'll say like 15 whatever, 1492, whatever, stuff like that. That for whatever weird reason, and I noticed, like I said, I noticed this whenever I was a teenager. For whatever weird reason, the one on before the number is usually an I, or it's really stylized, or it just looks weird, or whatever. And I said, that's really strange, Why would it be like that? Because you can literally look right above it, and there might be like another date or something, and there's a 1, and it's perfect. It's a 1. Somebody literally just wrote out the letter 1. And down here, it's like you've got the 5 is a 5, 3, whatever, 2, whatever. It's a number. And yet that one before the number, it's an I. It's a stylized I. Or it's a line with a dot on top of it. Now, I never really understood the dot. I never really knew, it wasn't a thing. So I'm like, even back then I was like, oh, okay, I get it. They're just doing something cool just to be silly. Ha 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 ha. Because I thought that's what you did, as cartographers do that, whatever, they're weird people. Shit, man. You spend your entire life going around to different places and making maps. And you do weird stuff. So, anyways, this guy starts talking about it, and he says, well, back in the day, what they used to do, instead of writing whatever AD, or, after the death, or, Domino's Pizza, whatever the fuck it is, instead of writing AD after the date, they used to write a J before the date for Jesus, whenever Jesus is born. J 492. That's 492 years after Jesus. See where I'm going with this? I got the goosebumps again, man. The goosebumps. They're there. It makes you think. It makes you think. It makes you think. It really. So he starts showing all these pictures of all these dates that he's found on these old maps. And these maps, this is 1492. 492. So he starts showing all these dates. 16 whatever, 15 whatever, 13 whatever. And these are maps that we know now. I mean, these are maps that we know that we've 1492 Columbus, 15 whatever, whenever they went around the edge of the thing and they did all this, and every single one of them has that stylized eye, or it has the line with a dot. Was that a J? That's your call, man. That's your call. Me? I can tell you that I can believe that's 500 years. I can believe that. I can see that. 500 years after the death of Christ, that they started going out trying to find the rest of the world. I don't think it took them 1,500 years to finally decide, hey, let's go see what the rest of the world is like. I think the Vikings probably went out about 500, 300, 400, whatever, and then came back and they were like, hey, by the way, we found this. You don't live on this planet for that long. Plane. Realm. I like realm. Realm. They've been saying realm. I like realm. You don't live on this realm that long and not try to go find the rest of it. They had the technology. They had the ability. Can't tell me that we've been living like that for all this time. It just sounds dumb. It really does sound dumb. I could be wrong. It could all just be bullshit. It really could all be bullshit. I don't know, man. I don't know, but 492 AD, 500 AD. They find this place. They colonize North America, colonize South America. They fill in the maps by about 600 AD. And then something happened. Something in there happened. And this Tartaria pops up. Starts spreading. Starts spreading out, spreading around. And I would say 1,000 years would be long enough for this Tartaria to blossom into this place, this beautiful place. They would have slowly but surely started colonizing everything, started making this really nice place, and all this stuff. And then something happened to them. Something wiped them out. I don't know. Remember I was telling you about the heat? You produce enough heat, you get ice. These guys are saying that maybe there was something happened up north that caused Siberia and Canada and all those places to become a wasteland. There's maps where the Hudson Bay up in Canada doesn't exist. Like the entirety of Hudson Bay just popped up out of nowhere. I don't know what it means. Go look it up. Figure it out yourself. I don't know. 2 hours into it, I'm not even done yet. Angie's coming home too. So they say Tartaria may have ended maybe 500, 600 years ago. 500 to 600 years ago. There's your 1400s. The history is written by those who win the wars. We know that. And if there was something for 1,000 years and it got wiped off the map, and from what I understood, from what they said, Tartaria was supposed to be like the most civilized society. They like to promote truth and justice and honor above everything else. Everything else. It was about being honorable and truthful and following righteousness and all this stuff. It was like the best civilization you could get, and everybody lived in peace. And there were many different cultures there and all this stuff. And somehow it doesn't exist anymore. It's not there, and it may or may not be real. I don't know. There's enough evidence in the world now that it did exist. I was trying to tell somebody at work about Tartaria, and the first thing he said was, "Oh yeah, well there was a country where they made the sauce out of." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so Tartar was a thing." So I looked it up. Tatar was a thing. Tatar. I'm talking about Tartaria. Tartaria. Tartaria, not Tatar. So there was something else I found too that just kind of cemented it for me. The main spoken language in Russia, especially up there in the northeastern parts of Russia, is Tartar. Tartar. That's a spoken language, like a dialect or something. I don't know how it works. I'm like, wait a minute. What the hell? How does that work? I don't know. That's crazy. It makes you think, man. It really makes you think. So you So you got the Illuminati that started in 1776. Look that up. That's a real thing. You've got whatever could have. I have a feeling that the last 200 years, we kind of know what happened. We can understand that they have manipulated everything to get to this point. They've manipulated the school system to teach us all the bullshit. They've created all the wars. They've caused all the problems. It is what it is. And there's still so much that we don't know. But I think that we're going to start finding out, because it says in the book, in the last days, all things shall be known. That there will be a great awakening. And that there will be many that will come back to Christ. And I think that's what's happening. I gotta stop. I gotta stop. It's starting to bring me down a little bit, because, once you start getting into the modern stuff and you start really thinking about it, it's like, man, that sucks. We've been lied to for so long, and I'm tired of being lied to. I'm really, really sick and tired of it. There's just too many lies. It's lies upon lies upon lies upon lies. There's so many lies at this point that you just cannot know what is true. And I'll get into that in another video sometime. I really will. I will probably kill my YouTube channel by doing it, because, YouTube algorithms will pick up on a word and just destroy me. But yeah, tired of being lied to. I'm extremely happy and grateful to my Lord Jesus Christ that He is showing me the right way, showing me where it is. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to. I mean, it's not, you don't have to believe in Jesus if you don't want to either, but He's always an option. He's always an option. If you want to make Him an option, you can always come talk to me. I can tell you which way to go. I can tell you where to go. I can't force you into it though, because if I was forced into it all my entire life, and I just rebelled against it. Being told that you're going to go to hell for not believing, man, that sucks. But being told that the world might be a lie, and that all this stuff kind of adds back to this point, you can start putting two together to figure it out. So, anyways, I'm going to stop. Angel's going to be walking in that door soon. It's actually time that I start thinking about going up and getting dinner. We'll talk more. I like these talks. I talk for 2 hours. I want to get this stuff out because I don't have anybody to talk to. Because everybody that I know anywhere would not listen to this because it's insane. It's insanity. It's nuts. If you made it this far, hey man, seriously, look it up for yourself. Take one thing that I said in this whole deal and go look it up for yourself. And if you can prove me wrong on just one thing, walk away. Go live your life. Go do what you're going to do. If you hear one thing and you go look at it, and if it sparks something in you, keep digging. Go a little further. The rabbit hole will not kill you. Don't jump down into it. Jumping down into that hole will drive you insane. Don't jump down into the hole. Just go look at one thing and then think about it. And then go look at another thing. Think about it. And then go look at another thing. Don't try to do it all at once. I did it. I did that all at once and I went crazy and it broke me. It seriously broke me. And thankfully Jesus came up and picked me up and said, okay, hold on, I got you. You're good. You're good. So with that being said, like I said, don't believe a word I said. Go out and find out for yourself. Go see it for yourself. It's out there. Just gotta look. And like I said, don't look at the first two things that Google gives you. Go to like the second or third page. Go to the fifth or sixth page, man. They will bury it in nonsense. They really do. Look on YouTube. YouTube seems to be giving me pretty good leads. You can't believe everybody on YouTube, but sometimes they have some good information. Go to YouTube, listen to what these guys say. If you don't believe them, follow their links because they will usually have links telling you where to go. Follow their links. Go see it for yourself. Go see it for yourself. It's out there. The truth is being opened up. We're going to find out what's going to happen. Now, whether or not the powers that be will let us live through this, I don't know. I don't know. We may find out the truth and then it's over. It's done. You don't know. I don't think they're going to let us find out for very much longer. It's just because of half the stuff I said in this video, because the YouTube AI will pick up on a word. Even just half the stuff I said in this video might make this video disappear. You never know. I mean, it's so messed up now. I don't know. You guys take care. God bless you all. I have faith that if you want to find the truth, you will find the truth. I did. It took me a long time, but I found it. Hopefully, it'll go quicker for you guys. I really do hope so. 2 hours, man. If you made it this far, hey. I've listened to 2.5, 3 hour videos at work. Man, it kills you. It really does. So, anyways, guys, you take it easy. Like, comment, and subscribe, or don't. I wish you all well in all your future endeavors. I hope that the world lasts for you. I really do. I'll make more of these. I like this. I like this. I like being able to just sit here and talk. I really do. So you guys take it easy. God bless. Take care. Good luck. Go do your research. Take it easy, guys.